The Indian government has made its position very clear. This could perhaps be a case of conspiracy, and if that's the case, then should not the US apologize and not express regret? That's our debate tonight. Maruf Raza, strategic affairs expert, joining us in the Delhi studio. G. Parthasarathy, former diplomat, joining us from Ahmedabad. Veena Sikri, former diplomat, joining us from the Delhi studio. Lord Meghnad Desai, an eminent economist, joining us from Goa, as well as Kurt Walker, former US ambassador to NATO, live from Washington, D.C., is also joining with us. Thank you very much. Maruf, my first question to you. The way you look at this entire story developing, what can you make of this entire development? Do you feel that, the way India is registering its protest with the United States, obviously something somewhere has gone wrong, to say the least?
Well, from all the evidence that's available to us through the media, it's quite clear that this has been an orchestrated exercise on the part of the maid and her family. And for them, America is the big apple, and they've had this opportunity to go there and make a case, and unfortunately put a very capable Indian diplomat in the dock. What is worrying to me is this whole issue of how America is taking its time to respond. I mean, you brought out the issue about there's only the simple word of regret. But please remember that America takes a long, long time, if at all, to apologize. In recent memory, last year, when they killed 24 Pakistani soldiers on the Afpak border by an airstrike, Pakistan did everything possible, blockaded NATO convoys, but you still didn't get an apology from America. Or in a larger historical perspective, America killed millions of Japanese in bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but even in the various anniversaries of those bombings, they got Japan to apologize for the atrocities that the Japanese troops had conducted in World War II, but there wasn't an apology from America, whether for the bombing of the Japanese, or using napalm bombs in Vietnam, or for using city bombings in Europe during World War II.
Right.
So I don't think you're going to get an apology from America. What we need to do is realistically understand how America-India relationship is now poised, and have we really gained from the so-called strategic partnership, or have we lost out in Afghanistan? Have we lost out in Iran? Have we lost out by giving them $9 billion plus dollars worth of defense
Let's come back to this issue, Maruf.
So there are a lot of issues.
Yes,
and
yes,
I think
Maruf,
this is the time for
let's
soul
just come
searching.
back. Let's just come back to the point of debate here, and the idea is it's looking increasingly clear that it's a conspiracy. Even our foreign minister has said that. Let's ask Mr. Kurt Walker. Why is America batting so much for a maid who had a non-bailable warrant issued against her, who had her passport revoked in July 2013 and was allowed to stay on illegally in the US?
Well, let's stipulate a couple things. First off, I think America made some terrible mistakes going along here, has handled this inappropriately and badly, both in the time before this arrest was made, when more could have been done to resolve this in a proper way, and also in the arrest itself. So let's be clear, this has not been handled well at all. Let's also drop the word conspiracy. I don't think there's any effort on the part of the United States government to create a case and to build a conspiracy. This is more a case of an accusation of a crime from the maid and an investigation of that crime, and then an arrest on that basis. And I don't know the merits of this case either against the maid or for the maid. That's something that needs to be investigated. But I do agree that the way that this has been handled has missed a lot of opportunities for the U.S. and India to work together on things that we both care about, which is the fair treatment of labor and also the appropriate protections of people such as diplomats or consular officers, and ways to work together as two countries to solve a problem when one comes up.
Well, Mr. Walker, if you allow me, I'd just like to make a quick rebuttal. You're talking about American laws. You're talking about how appropriately it's been handled purely on a legal basis. But it is going to open a Pandora's box, because a lot of American diplomats who serve overseas, look at their cases in India. And this is the point I've made earlier on NewsHour also, that if American embassies are regarded rightly so as American territory, than those they employ in American territory of ethnic origin in India, are they being paid the minimum wages that you would expect them to be paid in the United States? Your diplomats are getting fat salaries out here. They're getting hardship allowances out here. Why are they then paying them slave wages here? So I think there is a discrepancy, and you're expecting the Indian diplomat to pay this maid higher than what she's earning herself. I mean, this is bizarre. So clearly, whether it's not a State Department conspiracy, I stand with you on that score. But I think there are some lower level functionaries who've gone over the top.
Let's get Mr. Walker's response on this. Yes, Mr. Walker.
First off, so I wasn't limiting my concerns about the way this has been handled only to the legal issues. I think the way that she was treated individually did carry indignity towards her as a person, and I think that's a grave mistake. And I don't think that should be the case. Secondly, in terms of American diplomats abroad, having been one myself, I know that the U.S. government requires its overseas diplomatic personnel to live within the laws of the countries where they are residing. So it is both U.S. law and living up to the laws of those countries. Now, it's not to say that they're punishable under those laws, but it's a requirement that's imposed by our own government on our own diplomats. In this case, since she was not in a diplomatic status but in a consular status, it's slightly different. But that's not the main point. The main point is that we should have worked with India, with the mission in the UN, with the consul general, in order to resolve this in a way, if there was a problem, get it investigated, get it fixed in a way that shows cooperation between our countries, rather than what I would argue is just mismanagement, letting this issue just spin out of control to the point where U.S. Marshals get involved, arrest the woman, and now we have a big mess to clean up that should never have happened.
No, not just that, Mr. Walker. This admission on the side and what will be done now on the side. But Mr. Parthasarathy, the fact is, she was employed under the Deputy Consul General of India. She was working on behalf of the Indian government. And it's not that she has not followed protocol. The Indian embassy also has written to the U.S. State Department and to follow up. And it's a huge chain that you see, and there has been no response. So isn't that a violation of the U.S. laws itself by some people within the U.S. administration?
Yeah, I don't think it's a violation of laws of people within the administration, no. I do think that there's a dispute over whether it was diplomatic or consular immunity that applies. There's a difference under the Vienna Convention. But again, that's a technicality.
No, Mr. Walker, I'm not talking about what was done with Sangeeta Richard. I put that question to Mr. Parthasarathy. He has a point to make, so I'll just go across to him and then I'll come back to you. Okay. It is about what the embassy wrote to the U.S. Department and the lack of response that came over 6 months between June and as late as September.
Let me tell Mr. Ambassador Walker, a highly respected diplomat, that the U.S. action of dictating to foreign missions what they should pay citizens of their own citizens is not valid under the UN Convention of 1963, the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. Please read Article 47. Entire question regarding employment or by a consular officer in terms of Article 47 is to be determined by the consular officer concerned. The host government has no say in what we pay for people we employ from our country. I mean, we will not ask the US what they pay an American in India. This is point number one. And they are in clear contravention by that requirement of violating Article 47 of the UN Convention, of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. And I've studied it. The second point I wish to make on the conspiracy.
Okay.
I don't hold the State Department responsible for this. There is this overzealous Uncle Tom, an Indian, who goes by the name of Preet Bharara. Yeah. Now he is the man who seems to have connived in all this, and worse still, he has sought to undermine the workings of the Indian High Court, which had placed an indictment on this lady for misusing an official passport by arranging for her family to come to the United States. Now that is a conspiracy. The first thing we need to do is that what Barara has done, and is a New York attorney, is a violation of Indian law. It is a criminal violation. And I think a contempt of court notice needs to be served on him through the State Department. And I think at the same time, the Interpol should be informed worldwide that we have served this legal notice on this gentleman. Now, coming to this issue itself, this is going to take time to resolve, but India must not relent. Till we get back the lady's passport, till at least there is an apology for the people who treated her the way they did. As the ambassador says, I'm willing to go along with it, that, this is not something the State Department did, but then the people who did it,
Mr. Parthasarathy,
violating every
this is a crucial
norm of
point that you have
diplomatic
made.
conduct.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mr. Parthasarathy, the point that you have made, you've gotten a third dimension here, is about an overzealous US attorney. I'll come across to you. Let's quickly.
If they don't, just a minute, don't interrupt me. When we serve such a notice, if they don't apologize, then at least they reserve a reprimand from the federal government for their action. That is a form of atonement. So I'm looking at it through.
Okay, Lord Meghna Desai.
Either the cops who did this apologize, or there is atonement from the to the US government, to federal government, conveyed to us. Nothing short of that is going to work.
Okay,
but
atonement from the US government to be conveyed to India. That's what Parthasarathy is saying. Lord Meghna Desai. Mr. Parthasarathy, I'll come across to you. Lord Meghna Desai, getting you into this debate. I mean, the point that Mr. Parthasarathy is making is well taken. But the other point here is the stoic, studied silence of the US establishment. This matter was first brought, Ms. Sikri, in June 2013. And there was no communication from the United States. This matter on various points was highlighted by the Indian establishment about the maid. Assistance in tracing Dr. Khobragade's domestic assistant, Sangeeta Richard, an Indian citizen who entered the US with an official passport, was found missing on 23rd of June. Action against blackmailing by Ms. Richard, demanding that she be permitted to change her passport, visa status, and to work elsewhere, which would be in violation of US regulations. Apart from this, arresting of Ms. Richard, who has taken cash, mobile phone, documents from the residence of Dr. Khobragade. Now, Lord Meghna Desai, it's also this studied and stoic silence of the US establishment on all these counts.
I think what has happened is that had Sangeeta Richard stayed in Khobragade's employment, the Vienna Convention Clause 47 would have been satisfied. But she ran away because she claimed ill treatment. She's obviously gone to an NGO which has protected her. And because wage slavery is a serious offense in American law, the argument has been made. I have read the entire legal case filed against Devyani Khobragade, and the entire legal case says that the wage she was promised, 30,000 rupees a month, amounts to $3.30 per hour, which is way below minimum wage. Indian authorities knew it because in a visa application form, a wage 9 times that, $4,500, was entered. And this means that the government of India knew that this is what they had to pretend to American government they're paying. They were not going to pay that. Now again, had she stayed in collusion...
Well, Lord Meghna Desai,
Lord Desai...
But hang on, but she ran away. Let me finish.
Lord Desai...
She ran away and went to an NGO. There are a lot of NGOs in America which look after human trafficking, we look after wage
But
slavery,
Lord Desai, that's the point of the debate, isn't it?
Hang on.
No, you have read the case, but that case is one-sided. Because the US attorney, Mr. Preet Bharara, and the prosecutor
has lied on the visa application form. Devyani Khobragade has lied on the visa application form about the wage, and her
she signed it, isn't it? And the US immigration officials also gave her the visa, didn't it? She also signed another contract as per which. And why did not Mr. Bharara get in touch and get the details from the other side too? Because Devyani's sister today has put out the proof. Ms. Veena Sikri, you would have got the details where Devyani's sister.
This happens before Mr. Bharara.
But
this is before Mr. Bharara.
But the fact is, she was was missing. The
is
Indian
Mr.
embassy had
Can-
said
can
that
you
she is
listen to
missing.
me?
The US department
Can
didn't
you
bother to
please
trace
listen
her.
to
Her passport was revoked, but she was still allowed to stay on. So these were things which the US department also did. See, it's all looking at you're supposed to look at the entire case from both sides, isn't it? And she was being paid a wage of 30,000 rupees per month. That amount was being transferred to her husband's account in Delhi. She was being paid dollars in cash, for which there are receipts. Yes, Ms. Sikri.
Yes, in fact, the visa application submitted by the domestic assistant, Sangeeta Richard, stated clearly that she was going to get 30,000 rupees a month and that the diplomatic officer's wage was around 4,000 or 4,500 rupees a month. So that visa application was submitted to the Americans, and on that basis she got a visa. So the Americans knew the wage that was going to be given to her, and they accepted it.
Why did they accept it?
At that point. Having said that, why did they accept it? The second point is